It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today, our friend Jeremy sends in this question. He says, I had a number of fights, and usually I start slow, and by round 3, I really quicken my pace. And usually the third round is my best. My coach and my cornermen tell me that if only you fought like that on round 1. How can I fight like that every round? You probably can't. And let me tell you why. And that's probably not the answer you want to hear. The reason that you are fighting like that in the third round is most likely because you're winning. And you're winning because you wore the other guy down. You figured him out. You read him a little bit. You beat him up a little bit. He's fatigued. You're warmed up. And so you're on a roll. How do you start out like that? Well, you're starting out with a fresh fighter. You're starting out with all kinds of intangibles such as pre-fight anxiety. These things we don't really train for in the gym. Now, you might want to try a few things. Don't lose hope and tune out right away, but you might want to try a few things. Change your warm-up a little bit. Maybe you need a bit more intense warm-up. Maybe you don't. Warm-ups are very personal when it comes to fighters. What they can take, what actually helps them, and what doesn't. You don't want to waste energy before the fight, but at the same time you don't want to go in there cold, mentally or physically, if you will. So it's about finding the balance. Why do we have 3-round fights in the first place? This is a really interesting concept. Rounds are a tradition from boxing. And boxing originally had an unlimited number of rounds. And the round would end as soon as a fighter fell to the ground. They weren't timed back in the day. Then they started adding timed rounds and then a limited number to the rounds. And today, professional boxing, what is it, like 12-round fights? For the championship fights, and a minimum of 4-round fights for lower tier professionals. But generally, yeah, you're going to have 6 to 12-round fights in these professional leagues. Whereas if you look at other combat sports, kickboxing, Muay Thai, mixed martial arts, we have 3-round fights, with the exception of championship title fights, which have 5-round fights. What's up with that? Well, that's a tradition that came from tournaments. Yeah, man. That's why amateur boxing in the Olympics is 3 rounds instead of, 4 to 12. Because the Olympics is a boxing tournament. Remember the K1 tournament, K1 kickboxing tournament? Those fighters to win the tournament had to win multiple fights in a row in order to advance to the finals. And so those fights were 3 rounds. The idea was to keep the fights short because you can't do a whole tournament of 12-round battles. Normal humans can't anyway, not against equally matched opponents. And by association, that tradition of 3-round fights leaked over into mixed martial arts. Because originally, the UFC was a tournament format. Although when they introduced the rules, the rules, the rounds, the unified rules, it lost that tournament format altogether. So it's kind of odd that we keep the 3-round format from kickboxing tournaments and amateur boxing tournaments. Weird, right? But that is a big aside, beside the point. So Jeremy, how can you up the intensity of that first round? I'm going to tell you something. In a 3-round fight, you don't have a lot of time to get the work done. Probably feels like you do if you're on the losing end, like, man, when is the bell gonna ring? But especially a 2-minute or a 3-minute amateur fight, that's not a lot of time to get work done. So generally the guy who presses the action in the first round, often that's the guy who wins. Even if he's not the more technical fighter. The guy who pushes the action and is more aggressive earlier on is generally the guy who wins. Unless he's got absolutely terrible conditioning and he just gasses out in 30 seconds because he's some bum who just got off the couch instead of getting out there and training like I always tell you to do. How intelligently aggressive are you? Do you believe that you could start a fight at that third round pace that you like and that your coaches wish you would maintain in the first round? Do you believe you could do that? Are you warmed up enough to do that? Are you courageous enough to do that? Or do you feel like you need a round to feel out the other guy, to figure out how he's going to move, how he's going to play? Because if you haven't got a read on the other guy yet, and you go in aggressive and you go in hot, sometimes you pay for it. Sometimes the consequences are quite dire. It's not always a bad thing to start low and ramp it up, but in the short 3-round system, it often is. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train. If you like the gear I use in my videos, find it at xmartial.com. xmartial.com for rash guards, spats, shorts, and more. At xmartial.com, you'll find a wide variety of clothing designs and sport-specific training equipment for mixed martial arts, no-gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, wrestling, and Muay Thai. So, go check out our friends at xmartial.com, and don't forget to use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything on the website. It helps out this channel a lot. Thanks again.